guys, this is Laura from Doggy U, and I just got off a plane from California back to Colorado, and I have a topic that's super fresh on my mind after seeing an emotional support pig walking around near the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. So today we're going to talk about the difference between a service animal, an emotional support animal, and a therapy dog. So all of those three things that people tend to get confused, which has public access rights, what they're allowed to do, what their training level is, all of that we're going to talk about today so we can get those distinctions down. Alright guys, we're going to start with a therapy dog because it's a different type of class of dog than the service dog and the ESA. The therapy dog's job is to provide affection, support, comfort to a variety of people based on the circumstance. So you might bring your therapy dog to a hospital, to a group of children. They might read to your dog. You might bring a therapy dog after a traumatic incident so that people can have that support of an animal after that incident. So it's all about bringing the dog to people and providing that affection and support to a variety of people with no specific person. So let's talk about public access for therapy dogs. Public access for therapy dogs is granted on a case-by-case basis. Typically, your therapy dog does not have public access right the way a service dog does. They can't just walk into any store. It's typically certified through some type of organization. So you're usually working with an organization to get your therapy dog certified, passing a test, and then working with that organization to find places where you and your therapy dog will volunteer. It does not give you the right to go to the grocery store with the dog just because the dog is a certified therapy dog for an organization. But it does give you the right that, say you're having an event at a hospital and you're going to bring your dog into the hospital, whereas maybe other dogs are not allowed in that hospital and you're allowed for that specific instance. So therapy dogs have public access in specific scenarios where they've already been okayed. It's not a blanket public access. I have seen people who are basically passing their therapy dog off as some sort of service dog when that's not the case. And the biggest difference here is that a service dog is for a person with a disability. An ESA is for a person with a diagnosed disability. A therapy dog is for volunteering purpose for use by everyone and does not task or perform any specific function other than to provide comfort to a variety of people. So now that we've talked about therapy dogs and we know that therapy dogs are not specifically for a person with a disability, but for the support of the general public or specific cases, let's talk about the other class of dog, which is dogs for persons with disabilities. And in that category, that is the emotional support animal, ESA, or your service dog or service animal. Very different classes of dogs, very different requirements for each. Here's the most important thing to remember. Your ESA, your emotional support animal, has no public access rights. What does that mean? That means that a service dog is allowed to go in any public space by the nature of the service dog's ability to task for the human. The ESA is not allowed in public spaces. The ESA has two accommodations. First, the ESA is required or typically prescribed by a licensed medical professional to a person to provide therapeutic comfort to that person. So it's not tasking, it's not being able to turn on the lights on and off for you, pick up things, get something from the fridge. All of that are service dog tasks. This is a dog that is providing therapeutic comfort, or any animal that's providing comfort to a person and has some benefit for their particular disability, but isn't task trained and is not public access trained. What an ESA is allowed to do under the FHA, it's allowed in public housing that wouldn't otherwise allow pets, and it is allowed to fly based on the Airline Carriers Act currently. We don't know how that's going to end up because so many people are abusing that right. So those are the two laws that cover your ESAs. Typically, you are going to need to have a letter from a medical professional to get those two accommodations, so the housing and the flying. They do not have public access rights. So your ESAs are dogs that are or animals that are providing you a therapeutic benefit, but are not providing a task and are able to live in your housing with you. And then the flying thing, so being able to fly. That one's the one that makes very little sense to me, just because flying is one of the most stressful things you can put a dog through, and an ESA is required to have zero training to be able to take advantage of those airline laws. So they're currently in the process of kind of cracking down on that thing because there's been so many incidents, but currently allowed. So let's go on to talking about actual service dogs. What makes a service dog a service dog? So first important thing to note is that the ESAs and the service dogs are covered under two separate laws, or three actual laws. So the ESAs are covered under your Fair Housing Act and the Airline Carrier Access Act. So those are the two laws that govern ESAs and their rights. And then the ADA, or the American with Disabilities Act, is what covers all of the service dog laws at a federal level. A service dog is a highly trained animal. It's trained for one person with a disability, a diagnosed disability. It's got exceptional public manners, so that's your public access portion, and it is task trained. And this is critically important. The dog must be trained to do a task that mitigates your disability, some portion of your disability. It's important to note that providing comfort is not a task covered under the ADA. While your service dog might provide you with immense comfort, it must be task trained and public access trained to be covered under the ADA. Examples of things your service dog may provide but would not qualify under the ADA as a service dog task are comfort, support, friendship, and things like, it just makes me feel better to have him around. So what does that look like? A service dog is a dog that can pick up things off the ground if you're not able to. It can open doors if you're not able to. It can go ahead and alert you to a noise if you have a hearing impairment. There's all sorts of things that a service dog can do for a human to mitigate a portion of the disability. But the important thing here is that you must have a disability and the dog must do a task. Now, that public access training is critically important because that is a portion of the being able to go everywhere with their owner or any public place with their handler, is that the dog has to have impeccable manners. You want basically for your dog to go unnoticed. You should be having a situation where you're in a restaurant, you finish your meal, your dog comes out from under the table and everyone goes, "Oh wow, I didn't know a dog was here." Okay, so that's your goal, is the dog is a piece of medical equipment, obviously animal as well, your pet, but it's also a piece of medical equipment and should be treated as such by the general public and by you. It's an important part of your general health and your ability to function in the world. So we want a dog that is very unnoticeable. This includes not putting your dog on a table, not putting your dog in chairs or airline seats. The dog should be on the floor. Looking professional with your service dog. I think those are all really important things to continue to be good advocates for service dogs in the public. So those are the things that make a service dog a service dog. Can you be asked to leave from a store? Absolutely. If your dog is disrupting customers, growling, barking, and you're not able to get that dog under control, or if they're unkempt, they smell, they're not housebroken, they're peeing on things, all of those, you can be asked to take the service dog out. Obviously, you can't be asked to leave, but the service dog can be asked to leave, and you can come back in without the service dog if it's causing those type of disruptions. So you need to make sure your dog is clean, well behaved, and you want it to feel like it's just a piece of medical equipment coming along with you, just like you would use a cane, and not an intrusion on everything else that's going on. Also note, the guidelines that cover service animals is the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. It covers dogs and it covers miniature horses. That's it. So those are the two classes of animals that can be considered a service dog, whereas in an ESA can be pretty much any type of animal, though certain ones are not allowed on planes. So going back to what I saw in San Francisco is I saw an ESA, emotional support pig, being toted around all over near the bridge with a little wagon, and the pig is in the wagon and it's got its Instagram on it. And I think these types of things are what are doing a huge disservice to people who legitimately need emotional support animals, but they may not need a service dog. So why would you have an ESA over a service dog? Well, your dog might not be a good candidate to be a service dog. So they might not be able to pass the public access requirements. They might not be able to do the specific tasks that you need. You need a mobility and a dog for balance, and you've got a 5-pound dog. That's not an appropriate candidate for a service dog, but you may still gain those therapeutic benefits from having that dog with you, and that's why it's protected under the Fair Housing Act. So ESAs can be really legitimate, and I think a lot of what people are doing is putting them in social media, bringing them in situations that they shouldn't be in, and delegitimizing the ESA. The thing that differentiates that ESA, besides the different laws that protects ESAs versus service dogs, is the public access and the task training. So those are your two things that you need to have a legitimate service dog. And while we're on the topic of ESAs and service dog, I just want to put out there that any website that is trying to sell you an identification card, a vest, a package, a registration for your ESA or service dog is BS. These are scams that are taking your money. And whenever I see someone who says, well, I registered my ESA or I registered my service dog on this random online registry, I know that that person probably doesn't have a legitimate animal, because those places are not what makes your service dog a service dog or your ESA an ESA. Both require a medical diagnosis of a disability. In the case of the ESA, it typically requires a note from your actual doctor, and your service animal is task trained to mitigate a portion of your disability. So steer clear of all of those scammy websites. They are not legitimate. All right, guys, I hope that helped clarify the difference between a therapy dog, a service dog, and an emotional support animal. If you have any questions, comment below. I know it's kind of a confusing subject, especially since a lot of people are trying to blur the lines and do illegal things with their ESAs. So if you have questions or just want to rant about something you've seen in public, go ahead and comment below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to hear more videos regarding service dogs specifically, since that is my specialty, comment on what you'd like to hear, and I'd love to do videos on that. And otherwise, you guys have an awesome day. Hit that subscribe button, and happy training.
Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next video. Subscribe now and never miss an episode.